And now, WTOE Radio Live, brought to you by ThroughOurEyes.org.
Linda Zani Thomas. Linda is the author of The Looking Good Without Looking Guides to Personal Style for Men and Women, published in the Braille Monitor. Get the latest fashion news, makeup trends, and shopping scoops, plus expert advice on bringing out the best in you.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Get with us. You know what we say. Party every day, party every day, and I'm chilling.
Here's Linda.
Tonight's gonna be a good night. That tonight's gonna be a good night. That tonight's gonna be a good night.
Hi, and welcome to our March 2013 show, Dressing for Success in Life and Love. And we cannot think of a better guest to have on today's show than Evelyn Valdez, New Jersey Association of Blind Students board member, one of the most fashionable people on the planet, period. She will be joining us a little bit later in the show, along with my beautiful co-host, makeup diva, Johanna. We are not live on this show. We're pre-recording it. Johanna and I have a social engagement to go to on the 27th. But we want to welcome you all. If you have any questions you'd like to ask us, you can get in touch with Johanna and myself on our Facebook page or at lookinggoodwithoutlooking.com. Well, let's get right into it. It's the end of March. It has been a horrendous weather pattern up here in North Jersey, and we're ready for spring. And we like to celebrate spring with maybe a couple of key items for our wardrobe. But there's a lot going on in terms of sales right now, and we wanted to get that to you right away. I am wearing on today's show something I normally do not wear, which is workout gear. I'm wearing a beautiful emerald green top that is a zipper jacket by Zella. This is something I wear over it actually looks blue, but it on the screen right now, but due to the lighting, but it is kind of an emerald green color. And that is a top that I wear over what I wear when I go to work out. It's always great to dress up when you go out and work out and get some activity. And this is the month to buy running gear and running shoes. The manufacturers have figured this out, so they have deals on all workout tops, etc., because a lot of people go into 5K races and they start walking for things like breast cancer research, etc. So look for deals on activewear right now. Remember also, not on sale, but time to buy right now, prom dresses. If you want the pick of what the hottest looks are in prom dresses and you want to be the first to have that special dress, start shopping now. Johanna and I have, of course, our special Looking Good Without Looking $5 special coupon deal at Lord & Taylor in the Fashion Center that Johanna will be talking about in a moment. That's a good way to get a great discount on a prom dress. They are not on sale right now, but we can help you out with that in a minute. All right, what else is hot right now? Well, apparently North Jersey is very hot. In fact, in a recent article, there has been a lot going on in terms of new stores opening in the Paramus area. These are flagship stores for many companies, and they're finding that North Jersey is their next stop after their flagship store starts in Manhattan. In fact, I have very exciting news, jewelry lovers. Tiffany is opening up a big store at Garden State Mall in Paramus this summer, so look forward to that. Uniqlo, which opened their store in Garden State a couple of months ago, and we covered that, did so well. They're opening up another store in Palisades Park, and they're opening, at the Palisades Mall in Nyack, New York, and they're going to be opening up another store in New Jersey. Now, when Uniqlo opens, Uniqlo fans, they are doing one of their great sales again. Jeans, $9.90. Tees, $7.90. So keep an eye on these grand openings of the Uniqlo stores and get a fabulous deal on basics. And really well done, really well made basics. So that's another good scoop for you. Okay, what else do I have? Oh, yes. There is a great exhibit at the Metropolitan Museum in New York right now. It opened February 26th. It's called Impressionism, Fashion, and Modernity. And it features all the Impressionist works and talks about the fashion that they painted back in the day. That's something very interesting. Why not get into the city? Spring, I believe, is tomorrow or the day after. It's supposedly coming. It's a great time to go in the city and check out some art and just stroll around and go through Central Park. It would be awesome. Okay, another thing, of course, guys, we're going to just touch on a couple of things for you, and then we'll go to a little break and bring Johanna on. The Nordstrom catalog came out. You know we follow Nordstrom for men's fashion because of our buddy down there, Keith Charles, who's the number one salesperson, and now he's a stylist down there. Couple of things that struck me as a splurge, guys, because they're over $100. Ray-Ban has kind of, I'm holding up the catalog from Nordstrom. Ray-Ban has taken their classic aviator frames. Now, the aviator style is huge for men and women. This is a throwback, yes, to the 70s. But they have these Ray-Ban glasses now. They are mirrored with colored lenses, showing here orange, blue, and green. Let's see, I'm getting that right, Lenny? Orange, blue, and green lenses. Remember, choose a color that looks good on you if you're getting any color up by your face. But these, I think, are great as a splurge or a gift. What else is still hot? Something Johanna and I broke last year, which was exploded check shirts. This year with what's called a spread collar. Now, these shirts are available at Nordstrom, and they're really well priced. $59.50 for a calibrate shirt. You can see a spread collar, which is a small spread collar. This is the look of the season. Guys, if you just want to spend under $60 and totally update your look, go for a shirt like this with a solid, or it's showing here, a pattern tie. If you have any questions, of course, contact us, but the exploded shirt is still good. And a little bit of a twist on a classic. Lacoste is back, you know, the alligator on the shirt. But instead of a collared shirt, they have come out with a little bit of a twist that gives it a nice look, is a short sleeve Henley, which is kind of like a button-down polo shirt without the collar. This is a good look. You can wear it with a blazer. They're showing a lot of very colorful blazers, a lot of color for men. Remember, one colorful pop with a watch or a pair of shoes or a jacket is enough, and use neutrals everywhere else. We have a lot of more things coming in men's fashion next month, and right now we're going to go for a commercial break. We will be back with the makeup diva, Johanna Bakan.
We'll be right back with more of Looking Good Without Looking right after these messages.
Let's do it, do it, do it, do it. Here we come, here we go. We gotta rock, 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 rock. Easy come, easy go. Now we on top, feel the shot, body rock, rockin', don't stop. Round and round, up and down, around the clock.
Remember the time you almost volunteered to work in a soup kitchen? Or when you almost visited the Veterans Hospital? Or when you almost brought dinner to your neighbor with AIDS? Remember all the times you almost helped, almost gave, Well, it's only human, this almost giving. But the truth is, it's the same as not giving at all. Don't almost give. Give. Visit our website at don'talmostgive.org. A message from the Ad Council.
How would you feel if your children went to school and weren't taught to read? What would the future hold for them? Today, a mere 10% of blind children are taught to read Braille. Literacy is a basic right, and with it, a blind person can become just about anything. With Braille, a blind person can read at the same rate as a sighted person. This opens doors to unlimited potential. Learning to read Braille is the key to success. Without it, a blind child doesn't have a chance. For more information on Braille literacy and blindness, please visit our website at www.nfb.org or contact me, Mark Maurer, President, National Federation of the Blind, 1800 Johnson Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21230, or call us at 410-659-9314. The National Federation of the Blind. We are the voice of the nation's blind.
The audience at the Apollo is twice as likely.
The people at my family reunion are twice as likely.
My classmates at Morehouse College are twice as likely.
Many listeners to this radio station are twice as likely.
It's called the odds.
And the odds are African Americans are nearly twice as likely to suffer a stroke as white Americans.
There are steps you can take to help beat the odds. Start by calling 1-888-4-STROKE or go to strokeassociation.org. Join the power to end stroke. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Back to Looking Good Without Looking. Here's Linda.
Hey, everybody. I am back. We are just moments away from being joined by the uber fashionable Evelyn Valdez to hear all about her life and dressing for success in life and love. But before we bring her on, we must hear from our very own makeup diva. Johanna, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. How are you?
Hello, darling.
Hi, darling.
How excited are you about Tiffany?
I'm very thrilled. I'm really excited. I want to go to grand opening.
Oh, absolutely. You should go for a job there, Johanna.
Yeah, I thought about that.
I love Tiffany. Oh, my God. That'll be fun. All right, Johanna, do you want to talk about our special Looking Good Without Looking deal at Lord & Taylor?
Yes, we're doing a charity day at Lord & Taylor in the Fashion Center. And you either could buy a coupon from me ahead of time, and it's $5, and it goes to the National Federation of the Blind Through Our Eyes for our show, Looking Good Without Looking. And if you cannot get your coupon from me the day of April 4th, 2013, you could go and purchase a coupon, and you could say you wanted to go to the National Federation for the Blind, Looking Good Without Looking. And inside the special coupon, you'll get 25% off one item, and 15% off everything else in the entire store, including makeup and fragrance, which I think is fabulous.
I do too. And Lenny, we're doing this for you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We are shopping for Through Our Eyes. And isn't that just wonderful? It's a perfect fit for our show.
That's right. Fashion, makeup, all on sale, all with an extra coupon.
It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. Johanna, you and I have been experimenting with the Olay Pro X, which is a battery-operated piece of, I guess, makeup technology that exfoliates. Your comments on this so far?
Well, I'd like to use it a little bit longer. It's easy to hold. The buttons are very tactile enough, but I haven't used it long enough to really see the benefits of exfoliating, which I know there are benefits, in this way with a rotating brush. And I know you had told me that, this is $30. The other one is how much, Linda?
The Clarisonic, depending on which one you get, is like, over $150.
And I know that this one is just regular battery operated. The more expensive one is a rechargeable battery. It's waterproof. But maybe, like, we had discussed, for $30, it could do the same thing. You just got to be a little bit more careful, and you got to buy batteries.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, another thing we want to talk about price-wise is you and I had a conversation. Well, first of all, the product that you and I had used when we were at one of the lead seminars, which is sort of a silicone-based pore perfector product. It is called Salon Secrets Magic Perfecting Base. Right, Johanna?
Yes.
You remember that? You were right. It did have the word magic in it. Magic Perfecting Base. Now there is a new product that came out. It is called Miracle Blur. I believe it is by L'Oreal. This is $24.99 for 1 ounce. The Magic Perfecting Base does the same thing. And so do a number of other products. So if you, I guess our point here is, if you are trying a new product, like especially one that's these silicone-based sort of skin primers and smoothers, make sure you are really looking at how much is in the package and how much you are paying per ounce. For example, Philosophy's The Present, which is the same thing. It's a clear makeup. That is about $24.99 for 2 ounces. So that is, a much better buy, and you don't have to worry about the color being wrong. The Present is clear. Actually, Lancome makes also a clear primer, Johanna. I think you and I got some samples of that. Do you recall it?
Yeah, was it, it started with a G?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So there are many different formulations. If you're looking for a primer, before you buy, I suggest you contact us because we have a lot of experience in this category, and we can direct you to the right place and make sure that something you're putting on your face is the right color.
Is it called Jennifer?
No, Genifique is like a serum. It's called something else. They have a clear one. Lancome has a clear one too that's very, very good. And I really think if you are going to use a primer, use something clear because it can have a funny color, and when you put it on your face, you get that funny pallor. You know what I mean, Johanna?
Yeah.
All right, one last thing before we bring Evelyn on. I wanted to talk about mascara, which we talk about. All right, you know that I have been using HypnoStar, so has Johanna. It has passed the test. It has lasted 3 months, 12 weeks. This little tube here, it's very, very nice, does a beautiful job. I also tried Voluminous Million Lashes. We also tried the drugstore brands. Johanna, I have to say Voluminous Million Lashes is failing. Do you want to know why?
Yes, I do.
Well, it goes on really nice, first of all. It instantly gives you volume, which I love. You know that. Johanna uses Definicils. I use something with a little more volume. However, it flakes like crazy, Johanna.
Oh, no.
It flakes off in a couple of hours under your eyes. Ladies, if you are visually impaired, you will not know this. And you will have a lot of like dark flecks that actually give you a dark circle look under your eyes, like raccoon eyes. So I do not recommend this. So far, for those of you who are following along with us, we have recommended a couple of mascaras to you that have passed Johanna and ours test. None of them are drugstore brands. So to go back to our coupon from Lord & Taylor, Johanna, this is a great time to get a mascara that you and I recommend, like Definicils, like Hypnos and HypnoStar from Lancome, and like Benefits They're Real, correct?
Yes, correct.
Use that coupon and get yourself a really good mascara that's not going to come off, that your eyes are going to look flawless, especially you ladies who are using mascara that are visually impaired.
And it's a great time to go get your foundation.
Absolutely, a great time to get your foundation. Johanna, are you ready for our special guest, the fabulous Evelyn Valdez?
Yes, I'm very excited. I can't wait to hear about all of Louisiana, especially where she got her waxing done.
We are ready for Evelyn. Is she joining us, Lenny? Hi, Evelyn.
Linda, Johanna, how are you?
Great.
Yes, great. Evelyn, welcome again to the show. We have so much to talk to you about. I don't even know where to begin. I guess you should tell the audience about how you've been kind of off the grid for a little bit. You've been in Louisiana. Tell us what you've been doing.
Well, Linda, I want to thank you and Johanna for inviting me and allowing me to be a guest on your Looking Good Without Looking show. And you are absolutely right. I have been off the grid. I've actually spent 9 months in Louisiana, in Ruston, Louisiana, which is the northeast part of the state, closest to Arkansas and Texas, and so different from New Jersey, of course. I actually attended the Louisiana Center for the Blind, which is a blindness rehabilitation center. It's a 9-month intensive and vigorous training program, also known as Blindness Boot Camp. So I am very excited. I know for sure that they polished me as a blind person, and I'm just so excited to come back to New Jersey and share my stories and share everything that I've learned and acquired throughout my time in Louisiana with all of you guys, of course.
I want to ask a question first, Evelyn. Can you give us some key things that you realized or learned down there that you didn't know before you went?
Well, Linda, I think that I considered myself a very decent and competent blind person, but there's always room for improvement. And I know that as a person we have to continuously grow and improve ourselves. So we just can't say, you know what, I'm good like this, I'm going to just stay like this. I want it more, as I always do. And so when I went to Louisiana, I learned a new cane technique. I left New Jersey using a National Federation of the Blind telescoping cane, which was approximately 53 inches or so, between 53 and 57 inches. And while being at the Louisiana Center for the Blind, I got a long white cane, a rigid cane, one that did not collapse, and it is 63 inches. And so, excuse me, I really liked the technique that I was taught there. It's called the tap and slide technique. And at first, of course, once you're learning something new, you tend to trip and not understand it too well, which was what was happening to me. But soon, with the constant practice, I got it down packed. So I really enjoy the tap and slide technique that I use with my cane. We did a lot of confidence builder trips. We went zip lining 1,000 feet and whitewater rafting in Tennessee. And all of our training is done in blindfolds, in sleep shades, from 8 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Oh, my God. What? Yes. Johanna, what are your questions? I mean, I'm surprised at that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm very surprised at that too, because I would think that you'd want to learn techniques for the vision that you have left. I kind of understand it, but I guess it's good. I don't know.
Yes, it was absolutely great, ladies. Just it's imperative that as blind people we learn our skills non-visually. And this is what the Louisiana Center for the Blind does. It teaches you non-visual skills so that you're not depending on that little bit of vision that you have left that's totally unreliable. So since I have a little bit of vision left, I don't want to depend on that little bit of sight because it plays tricks on you, not something that I can count on or depend on. So it's better to get your training as a totally blind person where you now have the non-visual skills to do absolutely everything. So I have worked in a wood shop where I have cut wood using a bandsaw, a drill, a radial arm saw, a table saw. I've designed and built a perfume display as my final project. I have prepared a meal for 44 people, which was a meat and vegetable lasagna, 2 different pans. I've made dessert for them and a drink and some salad and some clover-sized yeast rolls. I have gone to Natchez, Mississippi on an out-of-town trip, which was one of my final projects for my cane travel class, all under sleep shades, taking the 7-hour Greyhound bus to and from Natchez, Mississippi. I have also done a 10K as a graduation travel class route. That's visiting different businesses all throughout the city of Ruston, and it's about 6.25 miles long. So it was a very, very long way, and it was a lot of walking. We've also traveled on Interstate 80 from the city of Grambling, which is where Grambling State University is, back to the city of Ruston. That's about 7 miles, 1 foot in the grass, while the other foot is in the asphalt on the interstate while 18-wheelers are coming at you. So it's a very exciting and adrenaline-driven program, and you have to be up for the challenge. And, of course, I definitely was.
I am so floored right now. Evelyn, I mean, already this is just unbelievable, and we haven't even gotten to anything that happened to you yesterday, which we want to talk about. I am really blown away. What about you, Johanna?
I'm definitely blown away too. I really am. But I'm thinking about it here. It's good. It's great training, and she's right. I have a little vision left too, but it does play tricks on you.
Yes, it does, and I agree. I think that you could really. I mean, I am fully. I have full vision. As you guys know, or maybe some of the people watching don't know, Johanna does not, and neither does Evelyn, but they have a little bit. And I guess it's true. You would kind of go toward what you have, and it's just not enough to get you by, right? Right, Evelyn?
That's right. Absolutely.
Now, Lenny, do we have to take a break now, or can we keep talking? Okay, we got about 5 minutes, then we're going to take a break. Evelyn, you mentioned walking on the interstate. I mean, that's just incredible. How many people were with you?
Well, we're a group of 30. 30 students were doing their training program, and we were separated into very small groups. So in my group, there were only 3 of us, with myself included. So we went in different small groups, and different groups they walked from Ruston to the city of Grambling, while other groups walked from Grambling back to the city of Ruston. So that way, it wouldn't be a lot of, people all seen at once, walking along the interstate. But it was just such a fabulous and great experience, something that, the instructors there, all they are going to do is push you to how you've never been pushed probably ever in your life. And I think that that's what's so important, how they push you and how they believe what blind people are capable of doing, being integrate members of society and just able to do everything with the proper skills and training.
I love it, Evelyn. And you sound like, when you left 9 months ago, we had just had something at the IHA Academy for the girls, a makeup training, and you came. And you left right after that. And I just want to say, you were confident then, but you seem more confident now.
Yes, I think that all of the trips and just, sitting down with instructors and knowing how much they believe in you, I think it's just what really just sets you. And to say, you know what, I am ready to do this, more now than ever, just ready to soar. So I'm just really, really excited that I had the opportunity to go to Louisiana and get that training and build friendships with all of the staff and the students there. It was just absolutely great.
Well, I think we should stop now. We're going to come back because, Lenny, I think we should take that hard break that we need to for the taping. And Evelyn, when we come back, we want to talk about how this boost of confidence and all this training has translated into some very, very interesting opportunities that have been a dream of yours. Yes. So we're going to cover a couple of things when we come back with the fantastic Evelyn Valdez right after this short commercial break.
Linda will be right back after we take a 4-minute break to save our files for podcast. Stay right where you are.
Here we come, here we go. We gotta rock, 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 rock. Easy come, easy go. Now we on top, 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 top. Feel the shot, body rock, rockin', don't stop. Round and round, up and down, around the clock.
Nothing inspires imagination like reading. And it's never too early to start reading to your children. When you open a book, you can explore new worlds like the ones in the Chronicles of Narnia.
Everything you see is Narnia.
Impossible.
You can make new friends, discover amazing adventures, and most of all, have fun.
Are you prepared for what awaits you?
To find out more about the wonders of reading, you can visit the Library of Congress website at www.loc.gov. There, you can learn more about books, play fun games, discover cool facts, and so much more. You can log on to www.loc.gov and let your journey begin. This message has been brought to you by the Library of Congress and the Ad Council.
Thank you, and we're back. You know, when it comes to fighting crime, he's never going to roll over. He's McGruff the crime dog.
Roll over. You're okay, Joy.
Thanks.
And I got 2 words to make your neighborhood safer.
Uh-huh.
Coffee cake.
Ah, the old poison coffee cake trick. The cook takes a bite, falls down to the ground.
No, it's for your neighbors.
You want to poison your neighbors?
No, never.
Oh, thank goodness.
No, for 25 years, I've been given tips about preventing crime. One of them is to invite people over for a cup of coffee and share the problems you see on your street and what to do about them.
That's great.
You can invite your local police officer to help, too.
You know, I hear they're very fond of donuts.
No, that's just a myth.
Oh, well, I'd come to your doghouse with coffee cake in a safer neighborhood.
Now you're talking. You can cut down on crime by not just locking your door, but opening up to your neighbors.
Still, a 10-pound bundt cake dropped on a bad guy's foot could help.
It couldn't hurt. And going to weprevent.org for other tips could help, too.
A message from the U.S. Department of Justice, Crime Prevention Coalition of America, National Crime Prevention Council, and the Ad Council.
Have you ever lost a cat? And have you ever wanted to get your cat back after you lost it? Hi there, I'm Andrew Hoffman. I went on this website called inventnow.org. Then I decided to make an invention of my own. It's called the Lost Cat Magnet Invention. So you can get your cat back after you lost it. Just turn it on, and lost cats stick to it. That's a good cat. If your cat was hiding up in a tree, it won't be up a tree anymore. It will be stuck to the lost cat magnet. And sometimes they fly toward you in the air. Just listen to one satisfied cat. See, that's proof. You should go to the inventnow.org website too. But just remember one thing. Don't do a lost cat magnet.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions or just play some games at inventnow.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, the National Inventors Hall of Fame Foundation, and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Judy. And my name is Johnny. We're 10 years old and we're blind. Our dreams are to become scientists.
My name is Catherine. I'm 24 years old and I'm blind. I'm currently in law school and one day I dream of becoming an attorney.
My name is Bill. I'm 74 years old and I've just become blind. My dream is to remain independent in my own home and not have to go to a nursing home just because I'm blind.
The National Federation of the Blind of New York has been helping blind people achieve their dreams since 1956. Help keep their dream machine running and visit blindnewyorkers.org to make a donation. You can also call them at 718-567-7821. Blind people are your neighbors and colleagues, so learn more about blindness and make your contribution today. Go to blindnewyorkers.org or call 718-567-7821. The National Federation of the Blind of New York. Today's dreams can become tomorrow's realities.
Back to looking good without looking. Here's Linda.
Hi, everybody. We are back with the fantastic Evelyn Valdez. Johanna Bacan, Makeup Diva, and I are talking to her about her experiences at Blind Boot Camp in Louisiana. Johanna mentioned during break we want to hear about fashion, too, and I want to ask Evelyn. Evelyn, when you were in Louisiana, what did you teach everybody there?
Let's say this, that the fashion that we know here does not exist in Louisiana, unfortunately. Really? No. Everybody's very retro, just nothing that you can say, ooh, impressive. Just because of the atmosphere that they're in, there are a lot of country people there. So you'll see a lot of women wearing cowboy boots, and they're flat. They have kind of like the almond shape in the front. Just, very simple. The fashion is not a big thing there as it would be here. So when I went out there, I came with the fashion that we all know here. And so, I had the opportunity to share some of, my fashion techniques and some of the fashion that isn't, that wasn't style, while I was there in Louisiana. So, and I told people about how to do the whole leggings with the tunics or the long sweaters, cinching them with wide belts, the combat boots being in. A lot of people didn't even know about the existence of combat boots. So I think that just me being able to share some of that with them, I think was really, really helpful. A lot of, women who happen to be blind don't really explore the whole fashion arena as they should sometimes. And I think it's important to always look good despite, no vision.
Johanna, you have a question for her?
You left, because we were talking about makeup application and waxing. Did you find a place in Louisiana for waxing? Do they do waxing like they do here in New Jersey?
No, unfortunately not. Now, I know that I've probably said this before. I actually get my eyebrows waxed at a place called European Wax Center, and it's a French-based business. They actually use beeswax for waxing, which is absolutely great because it doesn't hurt. So it's just like a strip with the beeswax, and it hardens, and as it hardens, it, takes off the hair. So that's what I use as my mode for waxing. And so, of course, I went to Louisiana, and there is no European Wax Center in the whole state of Louisiana. Mm-hmm. So I was extremely disappointed. So for 9 months, I had to resort back to hot wax, which I really wasn't a fan of. But now that I have returned to New Jersey, I've gone right back to my favorite place, European Wax Center, here in Short Hills, and I have a fabulous waxer named Brittany, who is just so fantastic. And I urge everyone to, if you are interested in wax and you know that wax hurts like it does for me, pay just a little bit more and go to European Wax Center. They're all over New Jersey.
Okay, great. Well, Evelyn, I want to switch gears a little bit because I know you have also been looking to, kind of change things up for yourself and to move away from like the education industry you were in into another industry. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what's happening with you on that front?
Yes. Well, Linda and Johanna, I decided to leave my job in April when I went for training at the Louisiana Center for the Blind. I had been working for the Hillside Board of Education for 6.5 years, but I came to that realization point that I wanted something different, something better, and it was a great moment in my life to go get training, acquire the skills that I needed to acquire to transition to something brand spanking new. So before I had left, I had given myself a goal that I wanted to work to do emergency response operations for FEMA, and that was a goal that I was going to strive for no matter what it took. And so while doing my training, I focused on that. I made sure that I took some FEMA classes online just to further, equip myself with knowledge. But, of course, no opportunity had arose yet until November, a couple of days before Thanksgiving. The Deputy of Veterans Affairs, his name is Mr. Jan Fry, from Washington, D.C., came to visit our center in Louisiana. And he came because the Veterans Affairs is trying to pass an initiative to have servicemen and women who have been injured in combat in Iraq or Afghanistan, and as a result of their injuries, they now have vision loss. The VA wants to have those servicemen and women come and get their training at the Louisiana Center for the Blind so that they are not released on medical discharge from the military. And so he came to visit our center and had lots of questions for a lot of our students and really got a good tour of the place and, just was very laid back and absolutely wonderful. And him and I spoke, and, he asked me what I wanted to do when I completed my training in January, and I told him that I wanted to do emergency response operations for the federal government, whether it was Department of Homeland Security or FEMA, which is an agency under Department of Homeland Security. And he said, well, send me your resume, and, you know, I'd like to see what we can offer you and all sorts of good stuff. And like I said, he was very laid back. He believes in blind people. And so a couple of days later, he called me back. Of course, I emailed him my resume, and he said he'd like to offer me an employment opportunity with Veterans Affairs to do emergency response operations in Washington, D.C. And so, of course, I've been ecstatic ever since. I've, you know, given him all of my information, and my paperwork is still under review because, as we all know, federal government hiring does take a considerable amount of time. But in the meantime, because I do not have a start date yet, I'm looking for employment now. And so I think that, you know, it's important to keep busy and try new things because, like I said, I don't want to sit around and wait until the opportunity in D.C. starts. So I've been on Indeed.com, which you guys have all probably heard of, and I discovered a company in New Brunswick called Gusta Tech Corporations. They're a food and beverage company, and what they do is they try to take out unhealthy ingredients out of their products, such as sodium, without compromising the product. So I actually went for a recruitment interview yesterday, and what the funny thing is that I was sharing with Linda that before last week when I called and I spoke to the lady, usually when I speak to employers, potential employers, you know, about myself, I exclude blindness because I don't think that blindness needs to be something to be discussed on the phone. I figure that the person will know that I'm blind when I show up to the interview. But I decided to use another strategy this time around. I decided that I was going to tell the lady that I happened to be a blind person and just wanted to see where and what direction that conversation would lead to. Well, so I told her after she asked me all these great questions and wanted to know more about me, I told her that I happened to be a blind person and that I was very flexible and, you know, I just required just reasonable accommodations, nothing big. And she was totally okay with it. She asked me, you know, to come in on Monday, which was yesterday, and I showed up yesterday very early, about half an hour early, actually. And the interview, I thought, went very smoothly, and I'm just kind of waiting to see, you know, what the response is going to be. But no matter what, whether I get the job or not, I know that I did well. I was very confident, and that's what's the most important thing. And anytime you go for an interview, you're always practicing. So even if this doesn't work out for me, I saw it as a practice, you know, my interviewing skills and visiting a new place because I didn't know how to get there. I took the train to New Brunswick and, you know, put the address into my iPhone and, you know, figured out how to get there. So I always see it as a new adventure, and I'm learning something from it. So I just hope that I do get the job, though.
I hope so, too. Now, let me stop you right there for a sec. I'm sure Johanna has some questions, too. But I guess when I spoke to Evelyn, everybody, before this show, I said to her I really liked how she actually brought up the blindness in terms of a problem in terms of it's no big deal, and I know the techniques, and I can help you bridge the techniques. And I wanted to read you something, Evelyn, written by Ellie Amder, who is a syndicated columnist, and he's a career coach. In fact, he writes under the career coach name. And I thought of you. And he said that How to Get and Stay Ahead at Work was the title of his article. And he said, first of all, it's simple, really. He said, it's interpersonal. He said, the most important thing we can do to get employment is to develop what he says are soft skills. They are communication skills, whether nonverbal, such as gestures, or such as the confidence you exude when you dress. This is my words, not his. But also writing, speaking, presentation, and listening skills are the most desired characteristics in the corporate world. And these things are things that are inherent in people, not something that can be learned. And Evelyn, would you say that your soft skills helped you with that job with the federal government?
Yes, absolutely, Linda. I think that, when I met with the deputy of the VA, he got to see me firsthand. I introduced myself to him. I told him what my credentials were. I told him what my interests were and what I wanted to do and how interested I was in trying something totally different and wanting to transition from, a career to something else, and how eager I was. And I think that, once a person sees that, how, you're so energetic, that you're eager to want to try something new, they get to see face value, who you are. And I think that that's so important. We have to sell ourselves. And, of course, we always have to say, you know what, I know that there's paperwork that has to be filled out, and it's a reasonable accommodation. Here, this is what we should do. And you throw some strategies or suggestions to them. That kind of alleviates that person from thinking, oh, how is this blind person going to do? Now they have their answers. So we have to try to give them the different options so that they don't feel so overwhelmed if it's their first time, having any type of interaction with a blind person.
Absolutely. Johanna, I'm sure you have questions for Evelyn. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to know, in Louisiana, did they give you training in JAWS? And what technology did you learn in Louisiana?
Yes, we did all of our training with JAWS, and of course with the monitors off and with sleep shades. Towards the ending of my training, I had about 14 and a half hours of technology a week. This was something that, I wanted to do because I am not so tech savvy, and I've always just had a little bit of fear of learning new technologies. But I was totally determined and committed myself to learning as much as I could about technology. So, all of the Microsoft Office applications and just learning, the different adaptive equipment, to hold DAISY files and portable modes and everything like that. So all of our training, like I said, was done using JAWS, and I even bought myself a Windows 8 laptop, a Windows 8 operating system laptop, just so that I can learn Windows 8 with JAWS, which is even much more complicated than Windows 7 will ever be. So I think I've really enhanced myself technology-wise. I bought myself an iPad just to get more familiar with the voiceover on the Apple products, and now I have an iPhone 5 that I got for my birthday last month. So I'm just really become gung-ho about technology.
That's great. That's something that I have to learn more about. Get an iPhone myself, an iPad, and a laptop. But that's terrific, and I'm glad to hear that.
Now, Evelyn, to get into the fashion a little bit, what were you wearing when you saw this gentleman from the Veterans Affairs Department?
Oh, even though, the Louisiana Center for the Blind, it's a training center, so they always suggest that you dress, you don't have to dress extremely professional, but, you do have to be comfortable always because you are walking about 5 miles a day. So I always had to be comfortable, but there were probably 1 day out of the 1 or 2 days out of the week, sometimes according to our schedules, that I would dress up because I didn't have cane travel class that day. So I wouldn't have to really walk anywhere, so I would dress up. And fortunately for me, the day that I decided to dress up was the day that I met Jan Fry. And so that day I had on a black skirt, like I said, without knowing that this was going to happen. I wore a black skirt with some black pantyhose, a white cardigan sweater, Ralph Lauren, with gold buttons and 2 little pockets, just something that I would wear to work when I worked for the school district, and just kept it very simple, small gold earrings, hair definitely brushed, was always very groomed, and I had on ballerina flats because, I did have to walk to and from the training center, so I didn't wear heels. I brought my heels in my bag. But, I was very comfortable. I had a gold watch on to match the gold buttons on the cardigan sweater. So I just dressed up, and I was ready. And so I think that your appearance is what's so important. And like I said, this wasn't a job interview. It was just us meeting each other, and it all worked out from there. So I just was very happy that everything just fell into place.
I am too, and I'm so thrilled because you were dressed totally appropriately, because he could visualize that you had a professionalism about you. Now, yesterday when you went down to New Brunswick for this interview, what did you wear to that interview? How did you prepare?
Well, yesterday I wore a skirt suit. It's a BB skirt suit. It's almost a charcoal gray, so it's kind of in between a gray and a charcoal gray, and it has pink trimming on it, and the skirt was pleated, and the back of the blazer, the suit blazer, was also pleated to match the pleating on the skirt, and I adorned that with some silver Tiffany earrings, because I am also a huge Tiffany fan. And like I said, I wore some. They're just very small, nothing too dangly, because you don't want to take away the attention of the person who is granting you the interview. So you don't want to wear nothing too dangly. So it was just two little links hooked on together, and that was it. So very small Tiffany's sterling silver earrings. I did not wear the bracelet to match the earrings, because since the sleeves were a little bit long on my hand, it would cover the bracelet anyway. I just wore a pair of nylon nude pantyhose and a pair of just my basic Cole Haan black pumps.
Very nice. Now, I want everybody who's listening to this show and everybody who's graduating from school or want to get into an interview, you can hear, Evelyn, your level of detail you went to, even thinking about the bracelet and the sleeve length and how everything went together. Did you get any comments when you showed up for that interview yesterday?
I surely did. That I was very early. That was the first comment. And, of course, I came prepared because it was, as we all know, New Jersey was very cold yesterday. And so I was not going to walk in those shoes because I had to walk from the train station. So I had a big, the classic Coach duffel bag, and in there I had my Coach portfolio binder, my small netbook, my iPad, and my high heel shoes. I wore some Cole Haan ballerina flats to walk to the place. When I got there, I went into the ladies' room, changed into my pumps, put my flats back into my bag, and took the elevator upstairs. And they told me, "Oh, you're here early. Oh, you look great. You look so warm." I had a Coach hat, which black and white with the Coach signature print with the matching scarf, and a black Kenneth Cole pea coat. And so, I looked very professional. But yes, I got a lot of great comments that, I was prepared. I had, everything that I needed, I had with me. So I thought everything was just wonderful yesterday.
I think you epitomized dressing for success in life and love. Johanna, do you have any questions? And then we're going to have Evelyn talk about something she's going to be doing this weekend.
Well, of course, she talked about her fashion. What kind of makeup did you wear for the interview?
Oh, well, as you ladies know, I do not wear any makeup. And speaking to the makeup diva, Johanna, I know I've never been a fan of makeup. I know you ladies talk about it all the time, and I always just sound so interested because I'm like, oh, my God, they know so much about makeup, and I don't wear an ounce of makeup. I just do Victoria's Secret lip gloss, and that's it. That's all I did for my interview yesterday, just wore my typical lip gloss and called it a day.
Beautiful. I'm sure you looked absolutely beautiful. I am impressed. I love how prepared you were. I love that you were early. These are all tips for those who are watching us, and we have sighted and non-sighted viewers, men, women, and teens. Evelyn respected the occasion. She dressed to respect the occasion, even down to the earrings she wore. She was completely prepared. She did not make people worry about her. She made it easy for them to understand that they could bridge the gap with any technology needs or any transportation needs, and she came totally prepared. She totally respected the occasion, and I just think, A+, Evelyn.
Thank you, Linda.
Johanna, we want to ask Evelyn, what are you planning to do this weekend? Now, you gave us another event to go to in the city. Go ahead. Tell our viewers.
Ladies, and of course, all of those ladies or even gentlemen who are interested in shoes. I know, Linda, you had mentioned that there is an exhibit going on in New York. And actually, there is another exhibit going on at the Fashion Institute of Technology in Manhattan, and that will be taking place until April 13th. I believe it started towards the ending of February. This exhibit is called Shoe Obsession. So for all of those Sex and the City fans, Carrie Bradshaw, just think of Carrie Bradshaw's closet and all of those fabulous shoes. So there's going to be about 26 different designers that are going to have their shoes on display. But these are some shoes that women will probably never wear because they're so out there that you would probably just buy these shoes to have them as decor on your end table of your living room. So just to give you a little glimpse, there are a pair of shoes that are Alice in Wonderland inspired. They're a pair of pumps that have the teacups from the Alice in Wonderland cartoon movie on them. So just to let you guys know about this great shoe obsession exhibit, and I am going to definitely try to go this weekend because I'm really excited. I love shoes. I'm all about shoes, so I'm just really excited that this exhibit is going on. So it'll be till the 13th of April at the Fashion Institute of Technology in Manhattan at their Gallery Museum.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. We want to say we are obsessed with you, and congratulations on everything. Thank you for being on the show, and we will update our viewers on Evelyn's life as we go along in the show. Johanna, you want to take us out?
Yeah, Evelyn, as a visually impaired person, I'm so proud of you, and you did us well, and I'm speechless. I'm very proud of you, and I wish you so much success, and I can't wait to hear when you get the job. I guess it'll be in Washington.
I'm excited. I will keep all of you guys posted, believe me.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. Goodbye, everybody, and we'll see you next month on Looking Good Without Looking.
Looking Good Without Looking is produced by Linda Zani Thomas in cooperation with the WTOE Radio Network. All words, ideas, and content expressed on the Looking Good Without Looking are solely those of Linda Zani Thomas, and not necessarily those of the National Federation of the Blind, the Northeast New Jersey chapter, or the WTOE Internet Radio Network. To contact Linda about your personal style journey, email her at lindazani@aol.com, LINDAZANI@aol.com, or join the Looking Good Without Looking Facebook page.
That tonight's gonna be a good night. That tonight's gonna be a good night. That tonight's gonna be a good night.
Hi, this is Joe Ruffalo of WTOE Radio. If you are a resident in New Jersey and would like to join one of our chapters or have some more information about our chapters, please contact me at 973-743-0075 or email me at nfbnj@yahoo.com.
How would you feel if your children went to school and weren't taught to read? What would the future hold for them? Today, a mere 10% of blind children are taught to read Braille. Literacy is a basic right, and with it, a blind person can become just about anything. With Braille, a blind person can read at the same rate as a sighted person. This opens doors to unlimited potential. Learning to read Braille is the key to success. Without it, a blind child doesn't have a chance. For more information on Braille literacy and blindness, please visit our website at www.nfb.org or contact me, Mark Maurer, President, National Federation of the Blind, 1800 Johnson Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21230, or call us at 410-659-9314. The National Federation of the Blind. We are the voice of the nation's blind.
Advertise your events on internet radio and podcasts free. Need to advertise your club or organization's next event? Whether it's one announcement or different ones weekly or monthly, now you can. ThroughOurEyes.org, using our WTOE radio live broadcast and our podcast, give you the ears of the world. You can take advantage of our free offer in one of two ways: recording your announcement on your computer or calling our toll-free telephone number. Visit our website to learn more. Hi, I'm Keith Zalley, your announcer here at ThroughOurEyes.org. Into WTOE Radio's live broadcast. Our recording session, who have not yet registered at Through Our Eyes to consider doing so. Registering helps us ascertain whom our listeners are, where they come from, if they are blind or visually impaired, as well as other important information which helps us guide us in providing programming that will meet our visitors' needs. I urge all our listeners to register today. It's free and only takes a minute to complete the process. Please read our privacy policy so you can be assured that the information you provide stays with us and only us, and you'll never get any unwanted emails. Well, we're almost ready to begin. Since what you are about to listen to is live, after each recording of the show, you'll hear approximately 15 minutes of music. This is the time we are contacting our next guest for the next show. When the show starts, you'll hear it in its entirety. Our recording sessions usually comprise 3 separate shows, each about 15 to 20 minutes in length, with approximately 15 minutes between each session. So once again, thanks for listening to WTOE Radio Live. Our recording session will start momentarily. I'm Keith Zalley. next hour, join Steve and his guests as they talk about topics geared to educate and inform his audience. Listen as Steve brings his unique experiences as an author, business leader, teacher, and law enforcement professional to the conversation. Together with outstanding guests, Steve asks the questions that make a difference in his listeners' lives. You're guaranteed to be better off after you listen to the KOVACS Perspective than before his show started. So, sit back, relax, and see what his show can do for you.
Welcome to the KOVACS Perspective. I'm Steve KOVACS. ADHD and kids. Bullying and kids. Two huge concerns for parents with school-aged children. ADHD, medication in kids, bullying in kids. Millions of kids are on medication for these, quote-unquote, I'll call them attention disorders. Is that a good thing? Or is it a bad thing to drug, medicate so many children? Our expert guest and author will shed light on this extremely concerning topic to moms and dads with school-aged children, and even parents and adults that don't have kids in the school system. Some are a little bit concerned. Then after that, we'll talk about bullying. We've heard that children who've been bullied have shot up schools and killed people, perhaps brought upon all about from bullying. We've definitely heard of kids committing suicide because they've been bullied. Big problem. It's on the news all the time, isn't it, lately? But you know, is there anything that can be done about bullying? What can be done? Well, our expert guest on the second half of our program tonight has a book, and listen to this title. It's called The Bully Vaccine. The Bully Vaccine. Is there such a thing? Well, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about two topics, all about the welfare of kids. You know, kids are our future. It's an old cliche, but it's true. You know, when I'm 85, and I hope I am 85 one day, kids that are in elementary school now, kids that are going into the school system now will be my leaders. They'll be the people that will be looking out for our country, our society. And you know something? We owe it to them, and we owe it to ourselves to do right by them. We really do. That's what tonight's program is all about. So stay tuned for tonight's show. We'll be back in 2 minutes and 2 seconds.
We'll be right back with Steve and his guests right after these few messages.
Dublin, Bermuda, New Orleans. Train and travel with Team Diabetes Canada. Walk or run an international marathon and make strides to cure diabetes. Change for the better, for yourself, and for someone you know affected by diabetes. When diabetes enters a person's life, they need someone to turn to. You'll help by supporting diabetes research, education, public service, and advocacy. Team Diabetes information sessions are underway. Your first step is to call 1-800-BANTING.
If you think depression is all in a person's head, you're right. It's a brain illness. And like other illnesses, it has symptoms. A person suffering from depression might feel sad, empty, or numb. They might sleep more or less, eat a lot or not at all, or show little interest in participating in ordinary activities. Mood swings, including anger and sadness, are common. They're often tired and have a hard time concentrating or making decisions. Depression can make those who suffer from it feel hopeless. It can even lead to suicide. If you see the symptoms of depression, get that person to a doctor. With medical help, depression can be treated and suicide can be prevented. Learn how to stop depression from taking another life. Call SAVE, Suicide Awareness Voices of Education, 1-888-511-SAVE, on the web at save.org.
Hello, I'm Hector Elizondo. Every day, the American Red Cross responds to disasters affecting thousands of people, or just one person. Families depend on the Red Cross to respond immediately during times of disaster with food, shelter, emotional support, and other needed assistance. And the American Red Cross depends on you. Please call 1-800-HELP-NOW to make a financial contribution to the American Red Cross Disaster Relief Fund. Together, we can save a life.
And now back to the KOVACS Perspective.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Steve KOVACS. Today's show, first half of our show, is all about ADHD and a couple of other labels, I'll call them right now, on children and medication. We have an author and an expert guest that's going to help me, and I hope help you also understand what it's about. Is there too many kids out there that we feel have these disorders, these I guess you call them a disorder, ADHD, and some things, some other ones that are similar to that we'll get into a little bit later. Are they really out there, or are adults making this kind of stuff up? If they're out there, are we medicating kids too much? So please, let me introduce our guest today, Craig Wiener. How are you, Craig?
Hi, I'm fine.
Craig, do me a favor. Before we get into this, and this is a very important topic that we've got to get into because people are lost on this. And I'm going to give you an example about somebody that I just talked to not long ago, had a problem with this, just couldn't understand the whole ADHD deal they ran across in school. But before we go into that, tell the folks who you are and what expertise you bring to our table today.
Hi, my name is Craig Wiener. I've written 3 books on ADHD. The most recent is Parenting Your Child with ADHD, a no-nonsense guide for nurturing self-reliance and cooperation. And I've been practicing psychology for about 35 years. And I'm an assistant professor in the family practice department at the University of Massachusetts Medical School and clinical director at Family Health Center of Worcester. And I've been treating kids and families for that length of time and supervising other therapists.
You know, Craig, fantastic. You sold me. I mean, you've got great credentials about this topic. And I'm going to get right into it. We've got, limited time, because I say limited time, Craig, because this is such a topic that has so many things I want to touch. And I want to touch on for our listeners, because I know there are people out there right now, they have some questions. And I hope I get to them. Craig, the first thing I have to ask you, my friend, is is it a disorder, first of all? Is ADHD, am I calling it correctly? Is it a disorder, or is there a better term for it?
Well, it's a disorder in the sense that these are behaviors that people do that are related to problems in life. So it's a disorder in the sense of it leads to problems at work and home and school. So it leads to relationship problems. So in that sense, it's a problem for people. It's not a disorder in the sense of there's no medical test or biological characteristic that goes with this. There's behavior criteria, and the people that fit the behavioral criteria are all you can correlate problems with people that do the behavioral criteria, which means that some of them have a particular kind of genes. Some of the kids come from, they had health problems or motor coordination problems or high activity levels, language delays, negative infant temperament. So they were difficult to socialize. A lot of the kids that end up with the diagnosis were somewhat difficult to socialize, so it was difficult for them to coordinate with others and meet expectations. And over time, these behaviors evolve. And my perspective is that these behaviors get unwittingly reinforced, and that once parents recognize the ways in which these behaviors increase in frequency, that they can have a way to stop the behaviors and change them.
Wait a minute. So the parents, you say, see the behaviors and they reinforce those behaviors, those bad behaviors?
Well, it's unwittingly, because if a kid's very active, it's necessary for the parent to stop the youngster. So the youngster learns, unfortunately, that high activity levels end up with monopolizing a lot of attention and getting parents to have to chase them and stop them. And the distracted behaviors are kind of a form of avoidance, where if the situation is aversive or associated with failure or disapproval or confinement, these are the times in which the behaviors occur. And like all avoidance behaviors, is an escape from adversity. So the impulsive behaviors, for example, occur when somebody's irritable or angry or not wanting to be denied and act quickly before anyone can stop them. There's a lot more running to the park than when you leave the park. There's dragging from the park. So the notion of when the kid's doing what behavior has to do with the situation. And once parents start to recognize when these behaviors occur, they can have a sense of how do they respond differently so that they don't inadvertently reinforce them. Because once the child learns that either they get the parent to give in to them or they get away from the difficult situation, or that there's an accommodation socially. The parent might, if the youngster's procrastinating, then the parent ends up sitting down and getting the kid to get through the assignment, and the youngster learns to procrastinate because they essentially get rescued and they get compensated in some way as a result of not doing it. The problem for parents is to figure out what to do when the youngster's doing these behaviors. They didn't teach these kids these behaviors. These kids do the behaviors, and the behaviors get reinforced.
Okay, Craig. Now let me stop you here. You're going to have to forgive me a little bit because I'm going to go down to baby steps. I'm going to.
Okay.
You just answered me something, and I think you answered a lot of folks something. You answered a question I think they had in their mind. So there are, in your professional opinion, and don't laugh at me, these disorders, ADHD, ADID, and maybe there's a couple of I's and D's that I'm missing. These are valid, forgive me, behaviors out there, correct? I mean, they're not over-labeled. These things are actually occurring out with kids today.
These are behaviors that you can, a category of behaviors that once you know what to look for, you can say, well, this youngster fits this category. Now, the problem is once you make the category, people start to be aware of the behaviors and they learn to look for them differently. So once you pick out, look for everything red in the room, you're going to notice more red things. So that there's now 10% of the kids are being labeled ADHD. It's up to close to 10% now. So it's as you discriminate in any category, people start to notice it more. It's not that they're not doing it. It's just that this is the way we describe behaviors. This is the way we notice behaviors. So it's a high-frequency event for what's going on with the youngsters in our country.
You know, you're taking me to a path where I think I'm very happy. It makes sense to me because let me ask you a question. Let's say a child is diagnosed with ADHD. What I'm getting out of what you're saying, Craig, and Craig is the author, again, of Parenting Your Child with ADHD. What I'm getting from you, Craig, is that somebody may have ADHD today, but in 7 months or next school year, if his home life or something's gotten positive in his life, he doesn't have to be ADHD the rest of his life. Am I right or wrong on that?
That's my view, is that these behaviors, I'll give you examples. I had a youngster who was doing terribly, and they labeled ADHD, and then his grandmother died, and on the grandmother's deathbed, he promised her he was going to do well in school, and all of a sudden, now he's doing all the things he didn't do. So how can that be? And then
Go ahead.
So the idea is that these are behaviors that, yes, they can occur. They occur early. They tend to persist for most people. And the issue is it that we're not really doing anything about it? Is it that our treatments are very poor treatments, and that's why people don't get any better? Because we're treating these kids as if it's assumed it's a developmental delay. And I'm taking the view that these are behaviors that get patterned over time as a result of living in the world. And they can be unpatterned as a result of changing the way we relate to each other and the way the youngster learns to deal with expectations and the failure. These are youngsters that have a hard time meeting expectations, and of course they learn to avoid, because that's what we all do when we have trouble meeting expectations. So this is a group of kids that had trouble from the beginning.
Fantastic, Craig. I mean, I'm going to, first of all, when I see my producer, I'm going to tap her on the shoulder because I'm glad we got you as an expert guest on this, because you're making sense to me with an issue that I've struggled with. The labeling of it, the extensive medication, and the kind of labeling where, many people, and maybe educators too, and I don't want to label them because I just don't know, hey, little Timmy's ADHD. Last year he was, and I'm sure this year he is. I mean, unconsciously. And the next year, so we'll drug him. And that just can't be right. So what I'm getting out of you, Craig, is that this child that is labeled may have gone through a bad time at home too, a divorce, God forbid, molestation, other issues, right, that can manifest this type of behavior. And instead of just saying that's what this kid has, let's pop some medication into his mouth, and I'm simplifying it, there are better ways to do it. I'm not saying medication is bad because I want to get down that path, but aren't you also saying, Craig, that there are other ways to deal with these behaviors?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. The problem is there's no environmental. There's lots of kids that start out with no problems, end up with the diagnosis. There's lots of kids that start out with problems with the diagnosis. There's no necessary correlate that says these are mistreated kids. Sometimes it's the exact opposite. It could be a very accommodated kid. So the kid learns that they're the center of the world. They go to school. They're one of 30 kids. They don't know how to deal with sharing the teacher, or they're not learning independence. So they don't learn to do their work on their own. So they act out in ways to get the teacher to go over to the desk and help them. There's so many subtleties that go with. See, the behaviors encompass so many things that they're essentially a group of avoidant behaviors or intrusive behaviors. And when you socialize children, you train them to participate and contribute to the social group, and you're also helping them, and you also train them when it's not their turn and when they have to defer to others. Because it's all about, with a baby, it's all about accommodating to a baby, but kids have to learn to wait their turn and share and orient empathetically to others. These are things that we all have to do to socialize our children. And this group of kids are lagging behind in all these behaviors and all these skills.
So, Craig, our educators, our schools doing right by these kids, or are they possibly over-medicating them and not utilizing other behaviors, or is that too broad of a brush that I'm going to?
Well, I think it's a great question. The thing is that schools are stuck with 30 kids in a class, so whenever you get large groups of people, you really have to do almost a herding technique. So schools use controlling methods. So they use behavior charts or rewards or punishments, which are essentially coercive ways to socialize. That doesn't work. As you know, it gets the kid to conform, but it has a lot of side effects. You know what happens when people grow up in institutions where they're rewarded and punished by other people who control their resources. They learn all sorts of side effect behaviors to deal with being managed by somebody. The solution I recommend is to get a youngster to cooperate, which not to conform or comply, but to cooperate. So they have to learn that that there's something of value for them to cooperate and do what's valued by the group. These are kids that don't recognize haven't had the success of doing what other people expect. So the schools are stuck with a problem of how do you get the kid to not be disruptive and yet accommodate enough to the kids so that the youngster feels important and the youngster also feels that they want to be part of the group and participate. Groups are very hard for people to function in, to learn in, because you have to defer your own interests for the benefit of the group. So these are a lot of kids coming to schools without a lot of practice. We used to eat all together in meals, and we used to play games that had to do with taking turns and doing things together. Kids are much more solo. So the whole problem of learning to be part of a group is difficult. In terms of the medication is a lot of parents are faced with a problem of if the kid doesn't settle down, they're going to have to go to a special class or something else, and there's failure is imminent. So out of urgency, people medicate because that gives you an immediate effect most of the time. The problem is they do studies that show longer term. Johns Hopkins just came out with a study. It showed that they followed kids who were medicated for 6 years, from 4 years old to 10 years old, and kids that weren't. And the kids at 10 years old, the kids that were medicated had the same ADHD symptoms as the kids who weren't medicated. So even though at the beginning it looks good, it's not really showing great effects over time. Now the other problem with meds is that the kid learns that you got to take a med to solve a problem, even though it's not an illegal med, it's a legal med. And you're also, when you medicate, the parent gets a sense the problem's solved, so they don't really do therapy. So now you got a 10-year-old. Now you got the kids older, and the problem isn't solved still. So, and then you have the whole problem of what's the long-term effects of these meds on some people, because everybody responds to meds differently. And then you have the problem of once the kid gets used to the meds, how do you ever get them off? Because then you have to react to getting them out. You got used to it, now you got to get unused to it, and you still haven't learned to handle yourself without being medicated.
Hey, Craig, you know what I want to do right now, Craig? I want to go have a drink. And I'm not a big drinker, but you know, because you said all these negatives, and I'm glad you're saying them. But I mean, everything you said, and we're going to talk about it now. I mean, there's got to be hope for all of these. There's got to be a hope here, but everything is a negative. You know, I mean, you're right. What's a teacher to do? You got 30 kids in a school, 25 kids, and you got to work with the group, and you got little Timmy in the middle, you know, kind of doing his thing. And what do? And so, Craig, break it down. Other than your book, and is your book mainly for parents? It's not for academic.
Yeah, I wrote 2 academic books which go through the whole biological view, the view that ADHD is a biological delay, and I showed how all the research can be reinterpreted to show that ADHD fits into a learning model, and it's that certain kinds of biology may increase the probability of learning these behaviors, like I was suggesting earlier. But I have 2 books, academic books out, and then the last book is a parenting book that really breaks this stuff down to what does the parent do to get rid of these behaviors and shape self-reliance and cooperation, because this is a group of kids that are not doing things that they're supposed to do on their own. They either have to coerce them. You have to. The traditional therapy is you coerce them to do it because they won't do it on their own. And I'm saying, no, you can change things so that they're more likely to be interested in doing it on their own. These are kids that do great when they're interested in something. So you want to get them more interested in what other people value. That's the whole key. It's not force them into it. It's get them to be interested in it. Because they do fine when they're interested.
Now, Craig, what's a parent to do? And I know of an incident right now happened not too long ago, and we won't have time to touch on it because you've really touched a lot of what I wanted to talk about. But what's a parent to do today? I mean, let's say tomorrow they take little Timmy is going to school, and the principal or the school psychologist calls and says, Timmy's just not cutting it. He's a great little boy, but he's got ADID. And I believe, isn't that attention deficit inattentive disorder? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, ADHD, hyperactivity attention deficit disorder. Yeah.
Okay, but there's the one I'm thinking of is ADID, but
ADD is just the inattentive behaviors. ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Okay, so the school psychologist and the principal or whomever says, go to your pediatrician, because I believe that's how it works, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah, it becomes now pediatricians are handling the stuff, and they understand all these behaviors from a medical model. So the parent immediately gets channeled into a medical view, which is something's wrong with your kid. Something's biologically wrong with your kid. That's what a parent's told.
Right, and I got to believe most of the pediatricians will sign the medication order. I mean, if a parent comes to them, am I correct on that, or am I incorrect?
Yes, you're correct.
Okay, so what's little Timmy's mom supposed to do? Can you give us any advice? We've got a few minutes left, not very many, but and I recommend people. I mean, I really like your mindset, the way you address this. I think you're very realistic. So I recommend people, if they're interested in the topic, can't hurt to check your book out, Parenting Your Child with ADHD. But what's little Timmy's mom supposed to do tomorrow? Do you just go to that pediatrician, get medication? Do you accept the school suggesting that your kid starts popping pills? And don't get me wrong, taking medication, I don't want to make it flippant, or should they do something else? What should little Timmy's mom do tomorrow? Okay, so what I will believe is that if the problem is so urgent that they don't have the time to try to retrain and relearn all these subtle patterns, then they kind of get forced into a medication because they're going to get a very instant
effect. If the parents got a lot of resources and interest in learning about ADHD as a behavior that, like any other set of behaviors, then they start to work on another way to do it. And the problem is that I'm somewhat different than a lot of other psychologists, that I'm not suggesting that parents do behavior charts and chips and rewards and punishments, because I want the parent to help get a relationship with the child that's cooperative, so that the child has an interest in pleasing the adult, and the child, without the notion of a gift, reward, or a threat. Because the relationships aren't based on that. They're based on caring for each other, based on we love each other, and that's what we do. So I help parents establish a different relationship with the child. And that's what I suggest as the way to go with this. If they have to do meds, it's out of some urgency. And then the problem's going to be, I still want to help them get a relationship with the kid, and maybe it's a little easier when the kid is on the meds, but long term, if you're thinking long term, they haven't really shown that meds are really giving the outcomes that are very good. But then again, therapy hasn't really shown great outcomes either. And I think it's because it's based too much on trying to control the child rather than develop a relationship with the child where the cooperation develops over time.
Yeah, interesting point. Very well put. I liked how you put that. You know, Craig, I talked to a woman just a few days ago and I'm going to try to shorten this up because we've got about 3 minutes. And what happened, Craig, is her child went to a private school, and they said that her child needs to be on medication because the child has ADHD. So she said, go to your, the principal, I believe, said, go to your, we recommend that you go to your pediatrician, get medication, and your son will be fine. Well, the mom didn't accept that, and she took the child out of the private school and put the child into a public school. The kid's doing great. You know, the kid may have been going through some problems. The child may have had difficulties, but right now in public school, he's been there about 1.5 years now. He's on the merit roll. I guess that's close to honor.
Yeah.
He's in mainstream classes. You know, the family is all doing things together and hugging and loving. But what that tells me, either one of two things, Craig, is that the school misdiagnosed and just wanted to hurry it, or they worked with that child and the child kind of broke out of that quote-unquote label. So one of those two, right, Craig?
Well, very much so, because sometimes kids, when they're in a private school, they feel like they're not as smart as the other kids, and he may have been intimidated. And when he went to the public school, he may have felt more secure. Maybe socially he made some friends and he felt more comfortable. I mean, when do we all squirm and fidget to escape in our chairs when we're not comfortable? We want to get out of there. So that whatever happened, he may have had a better set of relationships at that new school, and he may have felt more comfortable achieving or less anxious about failure. There's lots of things affect all these behaviors. It really, people don't really look at it closely anymore. They don't see all the subtle changes in the youngster's behavior. Like, when is he doing this behavior? When is he not doing the behavior?
I got you, Craig. Craig, we're about at the end of our rope here, and I wish we had a little bit more time because it's very interesting what you're talking about. You're giving me hope that there's a way out of ADHD and those types of behaviors. And what I'm getting, what I've gotten is that medications can be used, and educators actually have a need for it, and they're trying their best, I guess, is what we've gotten. We didn't have a lot of time to talk about it, but they're trying their best to do the best they can. And I wish we had more time, but if people want to know more, they can go pick up your book, Parenting Your Child with ADHD, from Craig Wiener. And also, you can go to CraigWiener.com. That's CraigWiener.com. Craig, you've been a fantastic guest. You've made me a little bit smarter, and I want to thank you personally. Thanks, my friend.
Well, thank you.
Hope to talk to you again. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a little break, and we're going to continue talking about kids, a somber area in a lot of cases, bullying. What do you do with bullying? What do you do? We're going to find out. Stick around. Don't go away.
Hey everybody, this is Keith Zalley from the WTOE Radio Network, and right now we're going to take a few extra minute break just so we can save our files for our podcast. So please don't go anywhere because there's going to be more Steve and the KOVACS Perspective in just a few minutes.
Statistics say that 4 out of 10 high school students will drop out of high school. But sometimes the difference between dropping out and finishing is a boost.
I just try to motivate my friends as much as I can. Just get done with that credit. Just get that thing.
If you don't have anybody while you're in school, then there's not really a way to get through it.
I had a very good friend who was thinking about dropping out completely, and I just talked to him about it, told him that it was a stupid idea for him to do that. You know, he's gone so far, and he's only got a year left.
There's one girl named Maria. She just told me to get my things straight. She told me if I ever needed anything that she'll be right there. Even my friends that have dropped out tell me, oh, stay in school. It's not easy to leave it. You think it's the best thing, but then when you've done it, you realize that it wasn't.
10 real-life at-risk students are filming their year, so you can see what it's really like trying to get through high school. Go to boostup.org to see their stories and give someone you know a boost so they can finish. High school is hard. Graduating is harder. Brought to you by the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
If you're not facing your mortgage issues, this can be the most terrifying sound in the world. It means you've fallen behind. It means hope is dwindling. It means you're another call closer to losing your home to foreclosure. Fortunately, there's hope. If you need real help and guidance, call 1-888-995-HOPE. That's 1-888-995-4673. Because nothing is worse than doing nothing. A public service announcement brought to you by NeighborWorks, the Ad Council, and this station.
Have you ever lost a cat? And have you ever wanted to get your cat back after you lost it? Hi there, I'm Andrew Hoffman. I went on this website called InventNow.org. Then I decided to make an invention of my own. It's called the Lost Cat Magnet Invention. So you can get your cat back after you lost it. Just turn it on, and lost cats stick to it. That's a good cat. If your cat was hiding up in a tree, it won't be up a tree anymore. It will be stuck to the lost cat magnet. And sometimes they fly toward you in the air. Just listen to one satisfied cat. See, that's proof. You should go to the InventNow.org website too. But just remember one thing. Don't do a lost cat magnet.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions or just play some games at InventNow.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, the National Inventors Hall of Fame Foundation, and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Judy. And my name is Johnny. We're 10 years old and we're blind. Our dreams are to become scientists.
My name is Catherine. I'm 24 years old and I'm blind. I'm currently in law school, and one day I dream of becoming an attorney.
My name is Bill. I'm 74 years old and I've just become blind. My dream is to remain independent in my own home and not have to go to a nursing home just because I'm blind.
The National Federation of the Blind of New York has been helping blind people achieve their dreams since 1956. Help keep their dream machine running and visit blindnewyorkers.org to make a donation. You can also call them at 718-567-7821. Blind people are your neighbors and colleagues, so learn more about blindness and make your contribution today. Go to blindnewyorkers.org or call 718-567-7821. The National Federation of the Blind of New York. Today's dreams can become tomorrow's realities.
And now back to the KOVACS Perspective.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Steve KOVACS. Our next guest is a humanistic parenting expert who talks about, in her new book, about practical ways parents can protect their kids from bullying. Please introduce, or please join me in introducing our next guest, Jennifer Hancock. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, thanks for having me on, Steve.
You know, what a great topic. Jennifer, do we not hear almost every time, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I've been known to be wrong a time or two or three or four. When we hear of kids shooting up a school, and it almost sounds too too flippant when I say shooting up a school, but you know what I'm saying. We hear
Right. The
kids
massacre.
taking a gun into a school and shooting teachers and fellow students. It has to do with bullying quite often, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it's one of many reasons. There's usually a mental health issue also involved in it, but bullying might be one of the trigger events that causes that. Sure.
And suicide, right? I mean, we've definitely heard that sometimes kids kill themselves because they just can't stand that bullying kind of thing going on constantly, right?
And again, there's usually a mental health issue, but bullying can be, again, a trigger. And I think what happens is because the common wisdom is there's not really anything you can do about bullying. So kids are told, sorry, you just have to suffer through it until you get out. And so is it any wonder they lose hope and they come up with their own solutions? And sometimes the solution is to kill themselves, and sometimes that solution is to kill their tormentors. And, you know, we need to, because bullying is actually fairly easy to stop, we should actually be teaching these skills explicitly instead of telling kids, figure it out on your own. You'll figure it out eventually.
Well, wait a minute, Jennifer. Who in the world tells that to a kid? I mean, are there parents that tell their kids just figure it out on your own?
Oh yeah, there's nothing you can really do. You just have to wait it out. It'll get better.
Oh,
the number of people, when I say you can actually get bullying to stop, I'm not believed. Like, the first thing I have to say is this really actually does work. Because most people don't believe me that it works, because as far as their experience was, you just had to write it out.
Well, we're going to get into how to stop bullying, but before we get into that, who bullies kids? Who are the bullies? See, when I was a kid, I never bullied anybody. That's one thing I'm proud of. I just never bullied. But who are the ones that bully kids? Who are those?
Well, it could be anybody. They could be anybody. Bullying is a learned behavior, and kids do it because it works. It's a strategy to gain resources and status within a peer group that you might not otherwise get on your own. And so arguing and bullying another kid to get what they have, or because you're jealous of them, is a strategy that works for the bully. So it could be anybody. A lot of times what you hear is, oh, it's because the parents were bad or the parents are setting the example, but that's not actually true. Humans come in a wide variety. Some of us are meeker and some of us are more aggressive, and the more aggressive kids might try out, very young in kindergarten, more aggressive techniques, and they work, and then they start learning them, and that becomes their strategy. So it's not that they're doing it necessarily because they're bad kids. It's a strategy that works for them, and that's why it's so hard to get it to stop, because in order to get it to stop, we have to make it stop working.
Okay, so you're saying anybody can really bully, and see, I always thought, Jennifer, that bullies are, and this is a new word I've been using lately, they're malcontents. They're mixed up kids, and they feel good when they can look at a kid and that's a little bit weaker than them, and they can get away with it. That makes them feel good. Am I wrong on that?
That is one of the reasons why kids bully. Sure, if you've got very little control in your life and you figure out you can get control over another kid, yeah, you're going to do that because it's the only control you have in your life. So yeah, I think the malcontent is certainly one, a major component of what happens, but it's certainly not the only reason, but it's a big part of it, I think.
Okay, so there's various reasons that kids bully, which is interesting to me because I kind of always thought it was that one kind of thing. So there's other reasons, and I guess you probably touch on that on who bullies, what kind of people bully in your book, The Bully Vaccine.
It's more that I talk about what the bully's getting out of the bullying experience, so that you can understand how to stop giving them what they're looking for. The secret to getting a bully to stop is you're rewarding them without even knowing that you're rewarding them, and it's kind of hard to understand unless you know what the reward is, what the bully gets out of the experience that's valuable to them. Until you know that, you can't take it away from them. And what they get out of it is attention. They get your attention. They get you to respond in a certain way. They have control over you and your response because it's like pushing a button on a video game. You push the button, you get a response. And they like that, and that's why they do it. And so it's almost like they're addicted to the experience. And in order to get them to stop, you have to kind of become like a broken vending machine. They're going to push your buttons, and you're not going to respond the way they want you to. And eventually, they're going to go away. They're going to get more aggressive the same way you do when a vending machine stops working. You start pounding on it to try and get your food. But eventually, you give up because it's broken. And that's what you have to do with the bully. You have to stop giving them the reward that they're getting by torturing you, and let them cycle through what's known as an extinction burst or a blowout, which is that aggressive behavior. I'm going to get this vending machine to work. I'm going to punch it and kick it and whatnot. And then once they go through that, they'll stop. And this is well-studied behavior in every animal, including humans. The problem that we have with teaching kids how to get bullies to leave them alone isn't that the advice we're giving them is wrong. It's that we're not telling the child or the victim what to expect when you put this into action. And what to expect is an escalation, a short escalation through what's known as a blowout before the extinction.
So you want to let your child experience or experience, right, would be the word, that slight blowout.
They don't have a choice. It's not that you want them to experience it. It will happen, period. And knowing that it's going to happen and what it's going to look like and why it's happening allows the victim to control the entire experience. And so they're empowered. So instead of the bully being in control of the dynamic, when you learn what's happening, the victim becomes in control. They trigger the extinction burst. They ride that extinction burst out, and they're in control the whole time. Now, it doesn't feel good if you've got this escalation. And if the bully's already violent, you might not want to do this at all, right? But this is how you get it to stop. You trigger an extinction burst by removing the reward. The way I kind of describe it is this is like what the bully's doing, right? The bully's going to a vending machine every day, and every day they put in their quarter or their 50 cents or their dollar, and they get a candy bar. And then one day they go to that vending machine, and they put in their money, and nothing comes out. No one walks away from the vending machine, not even a nice little old lady down the street, right? We all start pushing buttons and trying to get our candy bar. And the victim of a bully is like the vending machine to a bully. They've been getting a reward from this victim every day. And then suddenly the victim's not rewarding them anymore. They freak out. And there's no way through that except to go through it, because every animal, from an amoeba on up to a human, goes through extinction bursts when their rewards go away. So
but isn't that scary? I mean, what if I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said knowing that this is going to happen allows you to control it. And that's what's empowering.
Okay, interesting. But again, isn't that scary, Jennifer, that when they're going through this, what you call an extinction, right?
Right, it's extinction burst or a blowout. Yeah. Heck yeah, it is. The child has to do that, and that's what the parent has to help them with, and the support system in the school has to help them with. And unfortunately, the schools are not always as helpful as they want, because the school wants to deal with something one time and doesn't realize that this is a process over time. Getting a bully to stop is a process that takes place over time. It doesn't take that long, but if you allow the bully to continue or you stop in midstream, what's going to happen is the bully's going to escalate, you give in, and then what the bully has learned, instead of, it doesn't matter how much I bother this person, they're not going to reward me, is I just need to be super aggressive and super obnoxious to get my reward. And now you've set a new base level for the bullying, which is way more aggressive than it was, which is why bullying escalates over time, why it kind of starts in kindergarten and then gets really bad into middle school, right? Because the kid is doing what's known as a variable reinforcement, which means sometimes they respond and sometimes they don't. That actually makes the bullying worse. It strengthens the behavior. Consistent behavior actually weakens it. But what we all fall into is this variable pattern. And again, knowing that you have a tendency to fall into a variable pattern naturally allows you to control your response a bit better, so you can make it more consistent and weaken the bullying instead. And it's kind of a counterintuitive thing, but again, this is one of those things that's well studied. And every animal that's been studied, including humans, operates in the same learning environment.
Okay, Jennifer, give me an example. Using your example about the vending machine. Let's say little Joan is the vending machine. What are some of the things that she's doing that's making that bully get rewards? What are the things that we want her to not do in the future, but what are some of the rewards these bullies are getting when they're picking on Joan or
They're
John?
getting an emotional response from Joan. She might be afraid of them. She might be scared of them. She might be sad. It might not be about her at all, and often it isn't. It might be about their status within the group and their ability to put someone else down they think makes them look better in the group, or it deflects, like with gay bullying specifically for older kids. A lot of times the gay bullying is actually a way for a child who is confused about their sexuality to deflect attention away from themselves onto someone else who's more obviously questionable in that way. So sometimes it's a way for them to hide. So again, it depends on what the motivation is, but there's something that the victim is doing that is inadvertently encouraging the bully to continue. And what you have to do is figure out what that is, and in all cases it's usually an emotional response. And the standard wisdom is ignore them and they'll go away. And what that actually is trying to get to is don't reward them and they'll eventually go away after a blowout. That's the actual knowledge that we have to be teaching. So if Joan is being teased and called fatty or gay or whatever, she can respond to that in as forward a voice as possible with eye contact to the bully, so the bully knows they're not afraid. And if they've got an issue where eye contact is really uncomfortable, then where can they look that's not down so they don't look submissive? And say something like, "Thank you very much for that information. It's very helpful," in as bored a voice as possible. Because what you're doing at that point is telling the bully, A, I'm not afraid of you. B, what you just said was really stupid. And C, it didn't bother me in the slightest.
Well, that's interesting, Jennifer. That part there that you said there that caught me there. You're giving that bully no fuel. No fuel for the flame, right?
And when you teach this to the kids, and I taught this to a mother whose daughter was a special needs kindergartner who was being teased at lunch. And this little girl who does have language difficulties managed to get that exact phrase out to a girl who was teasing her at lunch because her mom packed her lunch. And the school she goes to is like 80% economically disadvantaged, so a kid bringing a lunch is really odd. And she said this to this kid who had been bullying her about her lunch for 2 weeks, and the bully just kind of looked at her confused and then left her alone, and she didn't have any problems after that. And my son has used that exact thing when he was in kindergarten. It's amazing how quick the kids that, when you respond this way, the bully responds in a very confused way. They might try again if they've been getting a response from you for a while, but they'll give up very quickly because it's very clear you're not giving them the response they want, and you're not going to give them the response they want. So a lot of what a parent has to do is arm their child with language and body language that will help convey the message to the bully, I'm not rewarding you anymore. Sorry, this vending machine is broken. And also support for the child through the extinction burst process as the bully kind of may escalate. And that could take a form of violence, and that's how bullying becomes violent, is because the victim kind of variably reinforced the bully and it escalated.
What do you say to the Neanderthal answer to bullying, and one that I've used throughout my life, that one of the best ways to stop a bully from bullying you is to punch him square in the forehead. Now, let me stop you before you laugh and before you roll your eyes. I very much understand that not every child, male or female, and can be physical because that's just not how they grew up, or they're not their mindset. So that's really, what do you think of that when you hear that? Is there ever a time, in your opinion, that a punch in the forehead is the way to stop it, or is that ridiculous in your opinion?
The first one is, if it escalated to violence, it means it wasn't handled properly at the lower stages of the bullying. That's an escalate. If it's at a point of violence, it means it wasn't handled months earlier. It escalated to that point. All right, so that was a failure on the part of the adults around that child to teach the child the skills they needed to know so it wouldn't escalate to that point. That's the first thing, I think. The second thing, I think, is that's really, really dangerous. And because, in my community about 3 years ago, we had a kid die in an after-school fight that was fisticuffs, hands only. And someone just landed a really lucky punch and a kid died. So after-school fights are are way more dangerous than we realize. Kids get concussions and they can die. It's not an ideal solution. It represents a failure to have managed that situation and allowing the bully to escalate. And this is the problem the adults allowed it to happen by not teaching the kid what to do and how to do it, and providing consequences to the bully when the victim's reporting, so that it did escalate to that point, that the kid who's the victim had no other choice but to respond with violence. That's a failure in my mind, that we didn't handle it way earlier than that.
I got you. You know what's real interesting? Well put, by the way. What's real interesting, ladies and gentlemen, and Jennifer Hancock is our author and expert guest on bullying, and she wrote I love the title, The Bullying Vaccine. But what's really cool about what Jennifer did at one time, she was a dolphin trainer, and she kind of like gets how she taught dolphins, and she brings it to the bullying table too. Fill me in on that, Jennifer.
Sure, it's the same techniques, operant conditioning, the way animals learn behaviors and unlearn behaviors. There's classical conditioning and operant conditioning. What classical conditioning is just kind of what happens in nature. If you put a steak in front of a dog, they're going to salivate, right? And then if you pair a sound of a bell with the presentation of the meat, the dog's going to associate a bell ringing with the introduction of food and start salivating at the sound of a bell, right? You can take this knowledge of how an animal learns and unlearns through positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement and neutral reinforcement, and use that to actually shape behavior, reward behaviors you like, and disincentivize behaviors you don't want. And that process of using the knowledge of classical conditioning to actually shape behavior is called operant conditioning. Every animal trainer in the country, with every animal they're working with, uses operant conditioning. And it's incredibly well studied, and it works with humans too. Now, if you've ever seen Super Nanny, and you know they're the night training, the sleep training thing that the Super Nannies used to do. You ever see that show?
I have, yeah.
Okay, well, that sleep training that they do, that's operant conditioning. That's called extinguishing a behavior. It's a specific technique, and that's exactly what I teach people to do to a bully, is to extinguish a behavior, using the same techniques that Super Nanny uses, using the same techniques that the dog whisperer and the horse whisperer do, same techniques just applied to a bully.
Okay, gotcha. You know what's interesting is that there are adult bullies, right? And you talk a little bit about adult bullies and how to deal with them, too, in your book, right?
Oh, sure. Well, it's actually written for kids, but the bully is a bully is a bully, you know, and the behavior, it's the same thing you're trying to do. And what we have to remember is this is a learned behavior. This bullying doesn't come out of nowhere. It's learned and rewarded by society and by their victims. And bullies don't stop bullying when they leave school. They go get a job, and this technique that they've used their entire life that works quite well for them, they take with them into the work world. And that's what gives us workplace bullies. It's not that, you know, this person's a bad apple, although they may be, but it's a learned behavior, and it works for them. That's why they do it. And to get it to stop, you have to make it stop working.
That's interesting, to make bullying stop. And you know, I was talking about the Neanderthal approach.
Right.
You don't want to punch your coworker in the nose. I mean, time to go to jail and all that. So you have to stop that. Give me some ways that parents, that short of having your book in front of them, what are some of the things the parents can do starting tomorrow or the next day if their children are being bullied? What are some tips that you might be able to offer?
They need to arm their child with something they can say and how to say it that will disincentivize, that will be neutral to the bully. It's a neutral response. And they need to make sure, this is the most important thing, you can't just tell your kid ignore them and they'll go away, or tell them this and that'll work. You have to actually practice it with your kid. So if your kid's being called stinky, let's say, and you tell your child, you know, something to say, which my favorite is, thank you very much for that information, it's very helpful. You need to actually call your child names and have them give you the words back and the eye contact and the body language back to make sure that they can do it, and to make sure that it will roll off their tongue when they need to. The other thing is, if they're experiencing threats of violence or actual violence, it is imperative that every single incident get reported. And there might be 20 incidences a day for some kids in middle school, because it can be really violent in middle school because this behavior has been escalating for, 7 years? every single incident has to be reported. Now, when your child starts reporting every single incident, the school, the bus driver, no one's going to be happy because they don't want to deal with it. And you have to be there for your child and say, you need to report this anyways, because the squeaky wheel is what gets the grease, and it's going to cause an escalation in the bully's behavior, which is what you want, because then it's going to be obvious to the administrators and the bus driver and everybody that the problem is not your child, it's the bully. Does that make sense?
Well, it does make sense. Yeah, it does make sense.
And the only other option is you report, nothing happens, it keeps going, which is you have to expect it to keep going because you can't just report it and have it stop. It's a process that takes place over time, and it requires 100% consistency. If you fail and you allow the bully to get away with something, what they've learned is I just have to be that much more aggressive to get my reward. And and guess what? They're willing to. What you have to do is raise the consequences, the cost of bullying, higher than the reward. So you have to reduce the reward by eliminating it if possible, and increase the cost of doing the behavior to get the behavior to go away.
Why'd you start to write this? Something to do with bullying in your own family, right?
No, I was never bullied.
No, but your son?
No, I wrote it before he went to school. And I wrote it because of the suicides, to be perfectly honest. You know, I was never bullied as a kid, and I should have been. I had a deformed jaw. I was an intellectual geek. I was in the band. I should have been bullied. And the first time I had a kid be rude and mean to me, my mom taught me the secret of how to get them to stop. And it worked. So I never really had a problem.
And repeat that secret for us.
It's that the bully is looking for a reward out of you. They're trying to get your attention. They want your attention. And if you don't give it to them, and you kind of respond to them in a neutral, compassionate way, they're going to leave you alone because they don't want your compassion. They don't want you to feel bad for how pathetic they are that they can't behave properly. They don't want that. You know, they want someone who's going to be afraid of them. And as long as you're not afraid and you respond neutrally, they will leave you alone. And that's the secret. And then I went to college and found out about operant conditioning. It turns out that this is what it was. And it dawned on me with the suicides that, you know, this is preventable. And if I have knowledge on how to get bullying to stop, it's immoral of me to keep it to me and my family, right? I need to share this to help other people. It's kind of off topic for me because mostly what I write about is humanism and humanistic parenting. But, you know, it was kind of necessary. And a teacher who was interviewing me on her show for my happiness book, you know, she was asking me what my next projects were, and I threw out about 6 ideas, and she said, you need to do the bullying book now. I'm like, okay, prioritize it and get it done.
Okay, now, I'm looking at some research. You told your son about this in kindergarten, right? And he was able to easily use this, put it into practice. Am I correct on that?
He put it into practice the very next day, and by first grade, he was lecturing bullies, you know, on compassion and how you don't do this, and he's a good reporter. He's the person who stands up and makes sure that the bus is safe. He's the one who takes, you know, the lumps a little bit to make sure that, you know, what has to happen on the bus with the reporting gets reported. So he's he's an upstander. He's what they call an upstander. And the reason he's an upstander is because he has been armed with the words, and he knows that these words work to diffuse a situation. And so, yes, he's scared, but he's also courageous enough to know I can do this, and it's going to have a positive outcome, and that I'm morally obligated to do it to help not only protect myself, but the other kids as well.
Well, Jennifer, what you're talking about is, first of all, knowledge. You know that old cliche, yes. Knowledge is power. And knowledge is what makes us progress and do well and succeed. And what you're saying is, and it's very interesting to me because I've never heard any expert talk about this, and it's intriguing to me, and it makes sense to me. And I'd love to read your book and get every little piece, nook and cranny about your thesis on this, that if you stay neutral, if that child or that adult in that office, if you're neutral and compassionate, now that one really threw me. I almost fell out of my little leather chair here. And you know, the reason I say that is because compassion to that piece of dung.
I know, it's hard. And the compassion part is the thing I get the most pushback on. And I keep telling people, being compassionate with a jerk is an incredibly selfish thing for you to do. It's not going to help the jerk at all. They do not. Oh, my gosh, you be compassionate with a jerk and watch their anger fly. All right? it doesn't help them at all because it's the last thing they want. But that's part of the power of it to get them to leave you alone. You become toxic to them. All right. But the other thing that it does is instead of their barbs, which are being directed at you, hitting you in the heart and in the gut, they're kind of bouncing off of you like a force field. I don't know if you can see the picture of my book, the cover of the book, but there's a girl with her hand outstretched with a force field around her. All right, and the reason for that is when you feel compassion for someone's being a jerk, when they're insulting you, instead of hearing the insult and taking it to heart, what you hear is, oh, this poor person is so pathetic that they're being so mean. What happened in their life that they could be so mean to a complete stranger, right? And isn't that a better response in yourself than the, oh, they don't like the way I look and I'm wearing the wrong clothes? Like, which response would you rather have to a jerk?
Sure. And, your ideas are making sense to me. In the beginning, I'll be totally honest with you. I had my little doubts, but the more I hear you talk, Jennifer, the more it's making sense to me. And, it may be a solution that people can use, and it just makes sense, that neutral. And I understand what you mean by compassion, and I understood it right away, and it actually makes sense to me. Bullying is such a huge problem, Jennifer. Teachers, educators are going to classes and training all the time, and if you can find real workable strategies to curtail the bullying that's going on, that's fantastic. Just like you said, you could save a life, and you will save a life.
Oh, yeah, and the thing is, if we can start this knowledge with the kindergartners, like imagine if a bunch of kindergartners, and you only need 2 or 3 kids in a class to know this, it only takes a couple of upstanders to shut a bully down and not tolerate their behavior and create a culture where the bullying is not rewarded, it's stigmatized. It only takes 2 or 3 people in a class. And if you start this process when they're in kindergartners, those kids that are learning the behaviors and thinking, well, let me try this strategy, oh, look, it works, they're going to try the strategy and, oh, look, it doesn't work. And they're never going to learn the behavior because it never works for them. Or they're going to modify it and find another way to do it that's maybe a little bit more sly but a lot less aggressive. And that's actually, like, imagine what those kids are going to be like when they're adults, 10, 15 years from now, when an entire group of kids grew up without the stigma of bullying because they were empowered with this knowledge when they were 4 and 5 years old. And then it was reinforced to them as new situations. What happens is it goes underground, and then they start dealing with exclusion, right? And that's still a form of bullying. And then there's other more subtle ways. But you start being able to nail it down. And the great part about this, in my vision, is that if we can get the moderate kids that aren't really bad apples out of the way, then it's easier to identify the kids who really are, have psychosocial issues that need to be addressed but can't even be seen because of all the verbal and physical violence that occurs in the course of events in the normal school.
Well put. Jennifer, where can people get your book at?
They just go to thebullyvaccine.com, and they'll get all the information on it. And if you've got a kid who's being bullied, I do have a free online course for how to talk to your child's school about bullying. You just have to, register for the website, and it'll give you access to all that information and the videos and everything. So.
Wait a minute. Explain that about the school thing again. What do you have?
I have a free program online. It's like a video lesson with a big, long worksheet on it about how to talk to your child's school about bullying to get the help, because most schools are not really prepared to actually interface and help a child retrain a bully and do their part. And so you actually have to kind of train the school while you're dealing with the bully at the same time, but it's very doable.
Okay, and that is Bully Vaccine. Fantastic title, by the way. I love that.
Well, thank you.
Vaccine in my arm or my butt. No, bullyvaccineproject.com. We've been talking to Jennifer Hancock, the author of the book, and some interesting, unique, different answers to bullying. It was an enjoyable conversation that I had with you, Jennifer. Thank you very much for being my guest.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, second and fourth Wednesday of every month, you know that. 9 p.m. till 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be with us. Send me emails. Tell us what you want to see, what you want to hear, and tell us any comments that you may have about our shows. We love it. We love having you. See you next time. Until next time, so long.
KOVACS Perspective is brought to you by the WTOE Radio Network at throughoureyes.org. All WTOE shows are available as a podcast. Visit our podcast page to learn more. The KOVACS Perspective was written by Steve KOVACS, directed by Tom Bendenwald Jr., technical director and audio engineer Len Azzarone, assistant audio engineer Lori Viscuso. For more information about the KOVACS Perspective, visit www.allsourcesecurity.com. All words, ideas, and comments expressed on the KOVACS Perspective are those of Steve KOVACS and not necessarily those of the National Federation of the Blind, the NFB Northeast New Jersey Chapter, or the WTOE Radio Network. Until next time, I'm Keith Zally.
Done it again.
That's all, folks.